It got to be about 9:30 or 10 o'clock, and I went out to return a video, and I noticed that the deadbolt had been tampered with.
A Long Beach woman we will call Jane leaves home and walks to the local video store, returns home, and gets ready for bed.
I think I was pulling my nightgown on over my head, so my arms were up. He leapt out of the closet and grabbed me and threatened me, told me to be quiet and cooperate or he would get ugly.
The intruder wears a mask, gloves, and a pair of underwear.
Forced me down on the bed and eventually raped me.
2 hours later, the rapist slips out the back door and into the night, and Jane calls police.
I went to the hospital as a part of a sexual assault response team call out and met the victim there who had been transported by patrol.
J. Craig Newland is a sex crimes detective with the Long Beach PD. Initial testing yields a sample of her attacker's saliva. With no suspect identified, however, DNA testing is put on hold. The evidence is packaged and preserved. 6 months after the attack, Jane's rape remains unsolved, and her case is shipped to the cold files.
Obviously, this was an area here that was very close in proximity.
Detective Catherine Kriskovic works in the Long Beach Sexual Assault Unit and is at the center of a growing investigation. In the 18 months since Jane was attacked, 10 more women have been assaulted. All of the attacks centered in the upscale towns of Belmont Shore and Belmont Heights in Long Beach, California.
We needed to solve this case. We did not want any more victims.
Detectives pull each case file and compare notes. What they see is not one, but 2 serial rapists on the loose, each with a distinct M.O. The first, dubbed the Belmont Shore rapist, targets older women in Belmont Shore.
Women, 40s up into 79. And he would commit the sexual assault and flee.
The second rapist, known as the Belmont Heights rapist, works farther inland, targets younger victims, and likes to linger after the attacks.
He would actually spend time with the victims, in some instances, several hours.
Sketches are circulated but generate few leads. Meanwhile, detectives warn the public to be especially careful, to lock their doors and windows. Some people listen. Unfortunately, others do not. It's just after 10 p.m. and Detective Kriskovic rolls out to the most recent attack. A 54-year-old woman raped by a masked man. It is an M.O. that fits the Belmont Shore rapist. Kriskovic cordons off the block and calls out the dogs.
The dogs trailed them to an apartment complex.
Detectives begin knocking on doors and talking to tenants. One in particular catches their eye. A man who looks a lot like sketches made of the Belmont Shore attacker, a man named Jeffrey Grant. Grant is arrested, charged with rape, and put behind bars. A sample of his saliva is sent to the LA Sheriff's Crime Lab for comparison with DNA from 3 of the Belmont Shore rapes. Everyone involved agrees Grant is their man, and science will cinch the case. On October 1st, criminalist John Bachroth sends semen from 2 of the rape kits, along with Grant's saliva sample, to an outside lab for testing. 3 months later, the results are in.
He was excluded as a suspect on the 2 cases that came back as a match to each other.
DNA confirms the Belmont Shore attacks are the work of one man, but not the work of Jeffrey Grant. After 3 months in stir, Grant walks out of jail a free man. The digging begins back at the property room, where detectives pull rape kits from the second string of attacks, the Belmont Heights series. In January of 2000, DNA analysis on that group is complete. As expected, the cases yield the same profile and are connected. But then the case takes yet another twist. The profile also matches the Belmont Shore series of rapes. One man responsible for attacking 18 women over the past 4 years. And he wasn't done yet. Tracy Menzer is a reporter for the Long Beach Press-Telegram. Crime is Menzer's beat. The Belmont Shore rapist, her headline story. The attacks began in 1996. By 2000, at least 18 women have been assaulted.
We were like the funnel. Everything had to come through our task force office.
In the spring of 2000, Estela Martinez and Catherine Kriskovic act as point on the investigation. Despite 4 years' worth of legwork, the ladies quickly realize, in terms of leads, they have a whole lot of nothing. Kriskovic calls in reinforcements from CCAT, a covert surveillance unit, and asks them to hit the streets looking for suspects and collecting DNA samples. Mike Dugan acts as the investigation's eyes and ears on the street. He works the neighborhoods where attacks occurred, looking for anyone and anything unusual. If a suspect is ID'd, a marked car is dispatched to stop the individual and question him. Over the next 2.5 years, cold case detectives swab and eliminate 81 suspects. Meanwhile, the Belmont Shore rapist remains at large, doing what he does best, stalking and attacking women. It's past midnight, and 71-year-old Margaret Gentry goes to sleep with her front door unlocked. Around 1 a.m., she awakens to a pair of hands at her throat.
He kept pulling my head back and telling me not to scream. He took me around the bedroom into the bathroom and stretched me out on the counter, raped me there. Then he come back and put me back in the bed and raped me again. So I was raped 3 times.
After an hour and a half, the attacker is finished and leaves the house. Margaret Gentry gathers herself, finds a phone, and calls police. Squad cars converge on Margaret Gentry's neighborhood, but the Belmont Shore rapist has once again disappeared. He will reappear for the last time 6 months later. On November 7th, Julie Adler awakens to a man on top of her. A shirt is tied around his head, and he is ripping at her clothes.
And then I just told him, you know, I'll do whatever you want. I'll do whatever you want.
The man eases up, and Adler thinks fast.
Once I realized there was no knife or no gun, then I just kind of started stalling.
Adler asks if she can use the bathroom. Once inside, she locks the door.
He started banging on the door, and the only option I had was just to scream out the bathroom window and hope that somebody heard me. And the next thing I knew is he's coming at me from outside. He's reaching in the window.
Adler bolts out of the bathroom and heads for her front door. She is tackled in the hallway and fights to stay alive.
At some point in the struggle, his hand slipped in my mouth. And I bit him. Just total instinct. I just bit him, and that was enough for him to stop.
The attacker flees. Adler runs to a neighbor and calls 911. Less than 10 minutes after the attack, a shirtless man on a bicycle spins out of an alley. An officer stops the man and notices he has a bloody finger. The biker identifies himself as Mark Wayne Rathbun and agrees to provide a saliva sample. His record includes arrests for peeping in women's windows and residential burglary. He works odd jobs, a lifestyle that would allow him to roam freely without raising eyebrows. 2 days later, the DNA is in, and the police hold a press conference.
To the citizens of Long Beach, sleep well tonight. Sleep well. We have the suspect.
Rathbun's DNA provides a full genetic match to semen collected in the Belmont Shore rape. In August of 2004, Rathbun is convicted of raping 14 women and sentenced to more than 1,000 years in prison. For Catherine Kriskovic, it is the end of a journey and the end of a nightmare.
Justice was served.